What if I told you that being a narcissist isn't just about personality, it's also about biology? Yeah, we're taking a deep dive into the narcissist brain on this episode. Um, and this is of particular interest to me. I was really curious when I discovered that I have narcissism, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. Why? Why I have this? I mean, I understand the connection with my upbringing, the family of origin, being raised by narcissists and so forth. But I don't think everybody that's raised by a narcissist develops NPD. So it seemed to me like there must be more to it than just learned behavior. So I set about exploring and investigating what it actually goes on in the brain of the narcissist. And there is some interesting research out there about that. I just want to go over a couple parts of it because it was really illuminating for me. And as I've shared that with other people who've known me for a long time, I found their response is that it's actually illuminating to them and allows them to have a more holistic view or a less like judgmental view of me, because they understand that some of it really is just my brain actually is wired differently, and that has caused for me to operate differently and respond differently, think differently, and view the world in a different way. So if you like that kind of nerdy science stuff, this is the episode for you. I'm going to not too sciencey, so don't worry about that part. But some of what really goes on in the brain of the narcissist. So some of the research has been done with different kind of imaging of the brain and studies that look at tests that look at how the brain is functioning, what areas of the brain fire at different moments, compared to sort of the normal or the normie, and also look at the size of different structures in the brain and what those structures are responsible for, or what we use them for in the brain. So you can kind of look at it like that's the hardware. If we go to the computer metaphor, the hardware is the wiring in the brain, and the software is then what gets overlaid, the family upbringing, the conditioning we get from our surroundings, our interactions, and so forth. The hard wiring is much harder to change. I don't even know that it is changeable necessarily. The software is where we can make those interventions. But I think in the big picture of understanding the whole of what's going on, understanding the hard wiring and the hardware is also, a useful thing to take a look at. So one of the things that is discovered in brain imaging is that the narcissist has reduced gray matter in what's called the right middle frontal gyrus. This is actually the decision-making and self-control part of the brain. So when there's less gray matter, it means there's less neurons, because the gray part of our brain is the neurons themselves, and the white part are all the connections. There's other stuff in there too, but sort of generally speaking, at the most basic level, that's what that is. So there's actually less neurons, less brain cells in that portion of the brain for the self-control and the decision-making. So that makes some sense in terms of sort of those panicked responses, and for me, it makes some sense in terms of just that ability to be fully present and aware when I feel like that panic coming on of, oh no, somebody's trying to get something from me or get me to do something. Another area is they found changes in the medial prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex. These are the ones that are going to make the most sense, because this is really about empathy and emotional regulation. So when you see changes there, deficiencies there, or just a different format, it really makes sense, because a lack of empathy or a decreased empathy or a complete absence of empathy, or mostly, is a very common part of the narcissist syndrome. And so that really makes a lot of sense that we see that as a brain structural difference also. It's not just that I choose not to be empathetic, or I didn't get those examples. The examples thing is true, that really my brain is wired in a way where it doesn't focus in that direction really much at all. It's much more into like the systems and the problem solving and the strategic thinking, because that's how my brain works. They also found compromised white matter integrity, or faulty wiring, in the right frontal lobe and temporal regions. So these also have to do with connecting empathy to conscious thought and activity. And so I saw an interesting study that showed that actually in some narcissist brains, the empathy centers do fire, But what the challenge is that they don't have the right or the proper connections to the rest of the brain. So while the empathy is happening in some, it's not connecting. So the narcissist actually doesn't make the mental connections to that empathy. The brain tries to produce that feeling, but it doesn't actually connect anywhere. And so that's why there's that deficiency with that. So it's kind of like, to the computer metaphor, it's like having a computer with outdated hardware. It works in these areas, kind of, but it doesn't run efficiently at all. And that leads to a lot of the dysfunction or the different functioning of the narcissist brain. So, these makes a lot of sense because the things that connect in terms of the brain structures and the personality or the way it's displayed are things like difficulty regulating emotions, impaired empathy, and the fragmented way of processing social and emotional information. Now, I don't experience it as fragmented because it's all I've known, but it explains a lot of the experiences I've had in the past that were always so confusing, where for one would be, if somebody was expressing something to me, either something emotional for themselves or something related to me, like something I said or did or didn't do that's causing the person distress or to have some sort of feeling. And I don't really connect to it in that emotional way that it appears that other people do. I have learned strategically over my lifetime that the person is wanting something in that field of emotional response. And so I in the past would, just stab in the dark to try to find it. Like, oh, maybe they want me to seem defeated and sad, or maybe they want me to tell them I know how they feel, or whatever the case may be. Just trying anything, seeing what sticks when I throw mud against the wall, right? So that's what, before I understood that my brain just works differently, that's what I would try to do, because I thought if I just tried harder to be caring and empathetic, that it would work. Like that it was just some failing on my part of, like, I just was like lazy or didn't try hard enough. So it's really been relieving in a sense to understand that it's not just a matter of that I don't try hard enough, or that if I just try harder that I'm going to start performing like a normie. It's really like, oh, this is what's going on. I see that. That's not how my brain works. I don't perceive and think of things the same way. So rather than just trying to like figure out what the other person wants from me, what I've begun to do is just be honest about it. Like sometimes that looks like, hey, I know or I have the thought right now that you are wanting something from me. You're wanting me to say something or answer something. I have no idea what it is. My mind is literally blank. And so I think the best thing is to just, stop this conversation now. And if something comes to me with it, I'll get back to you later. Otherwise, we just have to, start anew next time, because that's all I can do. And that's an important first step. And I'm still there in a lot of cases where that's the best I got. Other times I can, I'm more with it and I can say, I can tell, or I have the thought that you're wanting something from me, like, something emotional or an empathetic response. But that's just not going to happen. Sorry to say. It's just, that's not real for me. It's not how I work. It's not how my brain works. So I can tell you what's really going on for me. I can tell you what I see as the connections or the big picture without that emotional input or whatever, or just tell you, hey, that's not going to come from me. Sorry. But I think, you need to find that, what you're looking for, from somebody else, because I just can't offer that to you. It just would be fake, and I don't think you want that. And I know I don't want to be fake with you. So I do want to say that these findings that the brain is wired differently, it doesn't make an excuse for harmful behavior. And that's not my intention or my goal here. I don't want to be causing harm with my behavior to the people around me. And it's not really ever been my intention to do that. But that's really what's happened. But I think it's because of this complete misunderstanding by me. And then I misinformed my world, excuse me, by trying to fake it. So now that I understand that, I have the responsibility, I look at it like, to now inform my world, the people in it, of what's really real, and what's so. So having the understanding of how the the hardwiring works, the brain works differently, it's really been a great foundation to sort of rest that on. So it doesn't end up being a matter of like me just feeling guilty or like I'm just a bad person, because fundamentally I know that I'm not just a bad person because I have this MPD. That's not what it means. But what it does mean is that my job and the best, most responsible thing I can do is learn about myself and understand it as well as I can, and then be really honest with people, even if it sounds weird or what I think is going to sound like totally not the thing they want to hear from me, which, is scary, certainly still, because it's a lot of sort of this panic response. But let me tell you, doing it maybe at the time doesn't feel great, but afterwards feels so much better than the old way of just faking it and having all of these disastrously dissatisfying conversations, or making agreements with people and promises how I'll be different or do things the way they're hoping that I do, and then fail again over and over again, because that's the pattern that gets set up by the old way. So understanding the hardware of the narcissist brain is really just a beginning point, a foundational point. So next, in some of the future episodes, we're going to explore how these differences play out in real life and what you can do, things you can put in place, things that I've put in place that have been really helping. And you can take from that if you'd like and see how it works in your life. So if you find value, go ahead and subscribe, give a thumbs up, drop some comments in the comment section below. Questions you might have, your experiences, challenges you're facing, or strategies and things you've tried that seem to be working. I'd love to interact with you guys and even learn from you, because, I don't know it all yet. And, we're in this together. So hopefully you got some value, and I'll see you next time.